Hi, this is Ananda. We're gonna have a look at Olympus Viewer 3. This video is targeted for people who ask why is it that Olympus Viewer 3 isn't as well documented, or they're not tutorials. This doesn't work fully as a tutorial, but here's some insights. I'm running Olympus Viewer 3 on a Windows machine. This is the equivalent of Windows Explorer, and you can see folders, and like Windows Explorer you can expand and collapse the folders. On this side is shortcuts. If you have a particular folder that you want to come back to and use all the time, just choose a folder. This is shown in orange, and click on it, and it comes here, so you can flip between the different folders or come back to this conveniently. I'll remove this, and that's one way to remove it. Yep. And notice it says, are you sure you want to delete the selected shortcut? You don't delete the folder. No damage goes to your folder or your files. You're just deleting the shortcut. Click on OK. Under each image or thumbnail are three color categorizations. These three color categorizations allow you to, for example, pick one that's red, make another one red, and so red could mean that they are selected for some purpose, or you could pick another color, yellow or blue. So I'll just pick a yellow one, and I'll pick two blue ones, or I'll make two thumbnails blue. So that's how you choose them. The AB has to do with the selection, and you notice up at here that is called the selection box, and you can switch this gadget on and off. So now it's off. The thumbnails occupy the width of the screen. If you click it on, then you have a selection box, and what you do there is, for example, you want to select this one and select this one. So now they're both selected and they have turned up in the A. And then underneath you can choose to move. So I'll click on move, and yep, it'll suggest a location. You can nominate any location by browsing up and down. You can create another folder, and if you click on OK, then it will move these two images to that place. So there's move, copy, and delete. Now, before you use the program, before you use almost every program, you want to have a look at the options. So here you go, Tools, Options, and that gets you to the options. There's not a lot of options, unlike Lightroom or one of the other commercial products, but there's still enough to give you some interest. The first tab is Basic, and I've chosen Expert mode. You could use Standard. I'm not that interested in using Standard, so I'm using Expert. It rearranges icons, menu items and stuff like that. I'm happy with that. Import to. I don't use Olympus Viewer for importing. I don't like using such programs for importing or transferring from the camera. I prefer to transfer images from the camera by hand using Windows Explorer or whatever tool that is a file manager. Display language is English, of course. I've ticked display RAW and JPEG together. You can have it unticked, in which case then if you shoot RAW and JPEG, there will be two separate placeholders, two separate thumbnails. I've decided that I want to see both as one thumbnail, and I've decided that if I click on it, on that thumbnail, it will show the RAW in preference to the JPEG. There's multiple ways to have these choices, multiple options for your choices. Face detection is able to do some grouping, and crop images using aspect ratio. Now remember, JPEGs are cropped. Raw files are not cropped until you process them, and so the raw file actually contains the full frame of the image. So there. Startup. You can ask it to check for updates automatically. You could ask it to provide feedback. I don't want it to start automatically because, again, I don't want this program to take over my machine and try to transfer images from an SD card when I stick it into the computer. Display. You can choose the color of the skin and various things like that. In the thumbnail area, you can display sub-windows. Yes, and do frames and show items like file name, shooting date, color, and type, like that. Format. These are the formats that you can ask it to display for you. Or hide some formats if you think that this program is not suited to handling those images. Slideshow I almost never use. Color mark. Remember, you can have a color. In fact, you can have more than, if you don't like pink, hot pink, you can choose some other color. But you can put a name to that category. For example, important, and the last one could be something like waiting to be deleted, and maybe so things like that. So that allows some personalization of the colors. Advanced settings. You can ask the program to display the full quality of the image, or the highest quality of the image. I'm not really that desperate for that. Standard is okay, and remember, this program has a reputation for not being the fastest, so I'm happy with standard. Highlight shadow values, those are for the blinkies that you see on images. So they will, these are the criteria that they will turn the blinkies on and off for shadow and for burnt highlights. You can have multiple monitors. I do have, and you can display this two windows on in front of you. One could be the full image, and the other could be the thumbnails. And you can specify where to put the database. Now, the database is a file or a series of files, I can't remember which one, that holds all the metadata that you're playing with, like which photos or images you have decided to mark as read and stuff like that. So that's where the database is kept. Registered application. If you have bought another program, for example Photoshop, you can say when you want to edit that image, Photoshop will launch or some. There are these three icons. So the first icon is the selection box, and I've explained that it allows you two different selections that you could use. Let's click it off so that we don't see it. The next thing is properties, and so if I've chosen this image, you can see which image is chosen because it goes orange to highlight it. If I click on properties, you get a new pane, and that new pane tells you the name of the file, date, whether it's a JPEG or a RAW, what kind of lens it uses, and the shooting parameters that you've got, what some people call the EXIF. I've widened the properties window, and you can see a fair bit of metadata in the properties pane. A lot of it is EXIF, and if you might be curious as to, or you might be interested to see Olympus digital camera, which so often appears when you upload an Olympus image into one of the web galleries. Let's have a look at this, the commands on this ribbon. I'm interested in the lightbox, I'm interested in the raw. You can see panorama and time-lapse. There are additional features. I'm not keen to talk about that at the moment. So without further ado, let's look at the bottom, and at the bottom has my images, and notice the caption raw, and that means it's an ORF file, and you can see that it is an ORF file there, and you can rotate the image. When you rotate the image, it's a metadata rotation. The actual image is not rotated, but there's a flag that's saved to the image to tell you to tell this program how you prefer to look at the image. So if I choose that image and I click on raw, okay, there is a navigator that turns up. I'll move it to the side, and at the top are all the other images in this folder. Not all of them. You could have a lot of images in this folder. These are just the near ones, and so this is like film strip view in many other programs. If you now click on the image, and then you will see the image in full size. You can enlarge your view like this, and every time you click, it enlarges your view. So we're back. There is a decreased magnification, of course, and there is a fit to screen, so that's a fit to screen, and that's 1:1, so that shows you 1 pixel on the image is 1 pixel on the screen view. It's perfect for pixel peeping. To continue our story, these two icons control whether blinkies show. So this one is burnt highlights. You notice the blinking on the screen. That shows you that the area that's blinking has been burnt up. I can switch it off, and if I click on this one, it should show you that the profile of the man has been has become so dark that it's lost any detail, and it's telling you that. And this particular icon I just found out is show the image at show the raw file at full resolution. So it re-renders the file with a bit more computation from the machine, from the computer. Right, the vertical pane here is currently showing properties, and by the way, you can edit some things. For example, you can edit the comment, and you can click there, and it'll allow you to type in text, and you can comment on your photo, and that should save as metadata to the image. So it's showing properties, and now I click on edit, and it shows the editing adjustments. In the editing adjustments, traditionally there are two approaches or two demarcations. The first is the raw, and the raw will show you things that are global that you do to the raw to the image, to change the white balance, to change the exposure and stuff like that. The raw file has large latitude, and so you can do those adjustments. The edit tends to be things that you do to the image after the image has been globally processed. So for example, making enhancements like making it slightly sharper, slightly more blur, changing the tone curve a little bit, all those things are JPEG adjustments. So let's go to RAW. Now in RAW, if I go up a bit, there is an odd thing that I don't feel it should be there, but it's there. It's called art filter. We'll talk about that later. But let's talk about this second one called exposure compensation. So exposure compensation currently is at 0. So my camera must have been set at 0 compensation, and this is the histogram of that image. I feel that I've lost a fair bit of the black areas, or the shadow areas are really too dark, and I'd like to rescue some of that and make it a bit lighter. This one, I know it's really too white. I don't think I can bring something back, so what I can do is I can slowly increase the brightness, and you notice that I've shifted the image, and so it's really bright there. I'm not getting a lot of detail back. Remember, this is so black that I've lost so much detail in the image. I do see a little bit of rim. So it wasn't that good a suggestion. I don't think I've gained much. In fact, I've made the image worse. There is a reset button. So you click on the reset button and it says reset before editing. So you click on reset before editing and it restores the image to before I touch the exposure slider. So the exposure slider does allow me to adjust when things could be rescued, but in this case there's so much extreme of lighting in this image, I can't rescue a lot. Warm balance is the next one. So warm balance, I can allow as shot, or I can choose a particular setting, or auto means that I don't want what the camera decided, but I want what this software will decide based on that image. So that's the difference between as shot and auto. As shot is as recommended by the camera. Auto is as recommended by this computer and program. And I can choose a custom white balance setting, and here I'm a custom white balance setting, and I can make it warmer. So just make it grossly warmer, and yeah, see, so that's how warm it is. Or I can cool it off by making it very blue, and yeah, not very blue, but yeah, you see you get the idea. And that is the Kelvin in degrees of color. You can Google or Wikipedia the idea. There's also gray point specification. So if I click on gray point specification and I take the eyedropper and I click on something that is neutral in the photo and click on that, then try again. A lot of change. That will balance the whole image based on the assumption that what I've chosen is neutral. Picture mode. Here we are, picture mode. So in the camera, you can do natural, vivid, muted, portrait. So these are Olympus firmware settings for in-camera JPEGs, and since Olympus Viewer is supposed to be as close as possible to the camera settings, you can choose vivid, for example, and it might turn vivid. Yes, you may not see it here, or what is obvious will be monotone, and there it's called monotone. First, have a look at the floating windows here. The navigator shows you a red outline if you have zoomed in on portions of the image, and you can move the red outline and you will see different portions of the image. The history window shows you the actions that you have taken so far. So if you don't like a certain adjustment and you want to go back, you can say, for example, I don't like these two adjustments. I click on this one, and now I have ignored the adjustments forward to that, and I can redo my adjustments. Let's look at some of the other panels. So I'll collapse the white balance, and now I'm in picture mode. And picture mode is equivalent to the settings on the camera. So you might have decided to shoot the camera in natural, and then when you come to this program and you have a look at it and you say, oh, natural's a bit pale and you want it to be stronger, you can set it to eye enhance, and choose heavily enhanced, and just like the camera, it will apply enhancements to the color. You could, I just noticed you can also do color creator. Okay, and remember, this is the famous color creator that Olympus pioneered. I could make the image more red, maybe, or I could reduce the saturation. I can increase the saturation. I can click on and make it more red, like that. So it works exactly like the color creator dial on the camera. Okay. Highlight and shadow control is also available on the camera. So these are all equivalent adjustments to the camera, and so it can't be clicked. So just like the camera, you can increase or decrease the values. And this is equivalent to what's in the camera. Gradation is also available in the camera. So normal, low key, high key, auto. I could choose auto, and yep. You notice auto gradation on the camera tries to equalize the scene so that you don't have very deep shadows and very over white whites. So it's done that. It's lightened the shadow. You can adjust contrast, you can adjust sharpness, you can adjust saturation, aberration, compensation. If you have an old lens that has a bit of red fringing or green fringing, this is where you adjust that. Noise filter. A lot of people shoot with noise filter off, but here you can choose various degrees of noise filter after the shot, and that's really cool. False color suppression, I haven't used that much. That could be for another day. Color space. Remember, RAW in reality has no color space, and you could choose sRGB or Adobe RGB here. So most of these things are controls that work on the raw without implementing enhancements to the image. Most of these things in this raw panel are adjustments that you make to a raw file. They are global adjustments. They are not so much decorative in purpose. The one weird thing that is available on this panel is art filter. And art filter, so you haven't used any art filter. So if I click on filter and I want, so you'll recognize these. These are the art filters that are on your camera. And so, for example, if I want grainy film, yeah, that's what the grainy film effect will be exactly like on the camera. So it's a bit curious that they've decided to put it there, but they might have their own rationale. I'll just reset everything. Yep, and that's the image that the camera recommended, and this program dutifully followed to make it appear here. Now the edit panel is more decorative enhancements. Auto tone correction is here. So this technology was sourced or purchased through Epical, which is a third-party company that went through several brands and offered their services. It's a clever way this algorithm looks at the image and applies corrections to make the image more acceptable. Let's try this. So if it's on and it's calculating, and so you see it's lightened the face a bit and stuff like that. So that's what the Epical auto-tone correction does, and you can have it off. Monochrome and sepia, you would be familiar with that. You can do cropping here, tilt adjustment, again decorative, with blurs some parts of the image. Distortion correction, keystone correction. The keystone correction is here, so we could do that on a building. Shading compensation, that's for the corners. Sometimes if you have especially old lenses, that are not meant for macro four thirds, they darken at the corners of the picture. So shading compensation is for that. You can adjust the tone curve, brightness, color balance. So remember, you have color balance already in RAW, and that's the most effective place to do it. So I'll show you the color balance again. White balance is here. So white balance is here. And if you're going to adjust how blue or orange warm the picture is, this is the most effective place. But you can do seriously loud adjustments here. And let me close that. Yes. Then flipping of images and stuff like that. Now there's a customer's palette, so if you click on that, you can choose which ones you like. Like for example, I haven't chosen to insert text, but you might want to insert some happy birthday kind of text into it. You might want to have a red eye. If the flash went off in front of their eyes and they have a red eye, there's a tool for that. There's a noise reduction, an additional noise reduction. There's a color filter. There's a gamma. What else is there? There's a fisheye correction. So there. So a whole bunch of things that you can do, and if you click on OK, then these will now appear here. A whole bunch of things. Okay, so these are your adjustments. After you've made all these adjustments, we want to know how to continue. So I'm on this file, and I've decided that I want this file to have a grainy film. It could be that I've done any of the other adjustments. I'm choosing grainy film so that it's obvious too. Then I go to another image, and notice I'm not doing file save. I'm just switching images, and I want this image to have vintage. Okay, and this image will now change and have a vintage look. Okay, so I've got two images now. Now I'm on this image. I can hold down the control key and click on it to select it or not select it. So here it is selected, and I can choose another image, still holding the control key down, and I've selected the image. Notice that both of them are orange. So now I can click on export. I can export as EXIF TIFF or EXIF JPEG. TIFF is larger, JPEG is smaller. Okay, I've got this image, and I've got another image that I want to export. So I've taken this image, and I want another image, so I will hold down my control key and click on that, and you notice now I've got two thumbnails in orange. I click on export. I choose a folder, so let me go there, and it will browse, and I can have a folder. I've made a folder called edited, or I can make a new folder. Click on OK, and I can export as EXIF GIF or EXIF TIFF. TIFF is non-lossy image. JPEG is lossy compressed. I can choose the amount of JPEG compression. I can resize the image. There's advanced settings. I can decide to crop the image, add IPTC information. Remember, EXIF has some metadata, and you can also have extra metadata in IPTC. And I have a choice of save or export. I'll just go export, and it says new object was saved to that image, and then soon you will have that image in that folder. When you get one image right, you might want to copy the look that you have so labored so hard onto another image. So for example, I've got this image. If I click on edit, copy edit settings, look at that, copy edit settings, click, and then I go to another image. Yep, that's my other image, and instead of working so hard to produce the same, I can paste edit settings. And that's done it. Remember I mentioned Lightbox. What does that do? If I choose one image and I control click on another image and I click on Lightbox, it will produce a Lightbox window. And there I have the two images, number 1 and number 2. And I can eyeball them for differences, and I might want to do certain things with them. I can delete something, I can tag, categorize them, and so on. So that's the job of Lightbox.